is a short demo to show you what you can do with TimeSeries for smart metering. It is web-based using PHP PDO to access the database. The data, I have roughly 240,000 data points, 28 customers, representing 90 days of data, and the data is at 15-minute interval. So the first thing I can do is go look at my customers for a specific day, and here you can see I have a list of customers, so I'll keep AA Athletics, and I have dates that I can change, so I'll keep the November 10th. So with this, I can go and press Submit and get the data for that specific customer. So if I look at the information, opening this tab, I see, yes, it's AA Athletics with the information in Redwood City. What I see on the left side is the last data reading, and you'll see one reason why this can be interesting in a minute. And on the right side, you see the green line being the 15-minute interval for that specific customer, AA Athletics, and in green, the average for that day, same 15-minute intervals for all the customers in my database. So, for example, here I could say, show me updates to my data every second, and it will get the next 15-minute intervals. So if I run this, it shows me that the data changes, and you see the graph changing. In fact, you see both graphs changing, and it demonstrates the data. So when we look at this 15-minute interval, may be too precise, too granular for what we want to do. So instead, I can go to a different graphic and say, same customer, same date, show me the data, but this time aggregated per hour. And so what we see here now is that per hour, the aggregation, I get this curve. Again, in red, the meter data, and the green, the average. What we see there is that it still works in the 15-minute interval, but on the fly did the aggregation. And once again, if I say give me the updates, this time I'll say 2 seconds, for the next hour, it will go and on the fly calculate the average and give me the data for the next hour and give me the information that is provided. So that's one thing you can do with TimeSeries, being able to retrieve your data, aggregate it, and get to your results faster. Another thing you can do is, let's say you want to look at your daily data. So instead of 15-minute interval, instead of hourly interval, this time you look for a specific customer, and we're looking from November 10th to December 10th, and this time we aggregate per day. And when I press Submit, I get the information. And you see once again the daily value in red for the customer, and the green, the average for the 28 customers. At the bottom, you see some SQL statements, and I won't spend much time on this, but very briefly, let me show you that the second statement here took 4.9 milliseconds, and that's the red line, and the average took 95 milliseconds to give me working on 30 days of data for the 28 customers and giving me all that value. The second point I want to make with these SQL statements is what I get out of it is values that I can use directly through my program to display. I don't need to do any additional manipulations. You can take this one step further in terms of analyzing your data. So let's look here. You can calculate moving averages. And again, I look at AA Athletics, and I do a 7-day moving average and a 21-day moving average for the month that I just mentioned, November to December, November 10th to December 10th. And here I get my moving average. What that tells me is this is one indicator of trend. And normally when you have the 7-day moving average crossing on its way down the 21-day moving average, that means that the data in general is on its way down, and we see that it's confirmed by looking at the rest of the curve here. Basically, all that is provided through one statement here, where I use a TimeSeries function called TS running average, and I get my running average both for 7 days here, 7, and 21 days, in one statement without having to do extra manipulation in a program. I just get my moving averages and I can display them. Taking that one step further, I can look at the same moving average, but this time for all the customers. And as you can see, I got my result very quickly. It took 187 a millisecond to execute all this. And similarly, all in one statement, I get the values out and I display them. So that gives you an idea of how far you can take it. But you can also use the power of the Informix extensibility to also take advantage of spatial capabilities. So let me show you that very quickly. If I go in this diagram here, in this screen, I'm displaying a Google map that contains several of my customers, all the ones in the Bay Area. I have also some customers that are listed as being on the East Coast, so they don't show on this map, and I thought it would be more interesting to see just a local map. So what I can do is select, so if I down-click my mouse where my cursor is right now, move my mouse and let go of the button, it gives me a diagram, a rectangle that selects all these customers, and you see some SQL statements, and I won't go in details there. I'll point out two things very briefly in a minute. But what I see is the customers that are in red are above the average of the entire set of customers, and the customer in green are below the average. So basically what I see in the first statement is get me the overall average, and the second statement is get me the value for each customer. And then in my program, I look at the two values, and that average is for just the customers that have been selected in this rectangle. And I'm using a spatial operator here, stcontains, and you can see also created a polygon based on the values that I put on my map using the longitude latitudes. So the average is for just a customer selected. So if I were to say, let's increase the size of my rectangle and select more customers, then it gives me more averages. Another interesting thing, let me go back to the previous size, makes it easier to look at the customers. So take a look at these two red dots here. Keep an eye on this. And when I come here and change the date, let's say I'm going to the 18th, you see that actually 3 of the customers have changed, giving me the fact that these 2 here are in red are much higher. It appears much higher than the others because by changing that date, only these 2 guys are above average and all the others are below average. One more thing I can do is say, let me click on that one customer to see the details. And when I look at the details, it generates the same graph that I had before. And I'll change back to the 10th. And it shows me the specific customer, and I'll close the customer information. And then it shows it the same graph we saw before, and I can also change it and go from 15 minutes per hour, and it goes back to the database and retrieves the data, and you see the statements at the bottom. So with this type of power, you can keep your data at 15-minute interval and still do manipulation at hourly, daily, and get results very quickly. That gives you a quick idea of what you can do with Informix TimeSeries for smart metering. Thank you.